Jesus said, when you see the armies surrounding Jerusalem, let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down or enter his house to take anything from it. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my word will never pass away. We saw in part 1 that Jesus made 3 specific prophecies about Jerusalem, and they all came exactly true 37 years later. He also makes 2 warnings. The minute you see the armies coming, run for your life. Don't even go down into your house to collect your possessions. Now, those 2 warnings actually imply a 4th prophecy, that it will be very sudden, and it was. Titus arrived with 70,000 men on the 4th of April, 3 days before Passover, and within hours he clamped a total lockdown on Jerusalem, and nearly everybody trapped inside there lost their lives. There were hundreds of thousands of people who'd come to celebrate the Passover in Jerusalem. But you know that very few Christians died in that Holocaust, because they took literally the words of Jesus, and at the first sign of the Roman armies, they ran for their lives with just their clothes on their back, and the church was saved from a major catastrophe. It's a real object lesson, isn't it? That it's really worthwhile doing what Jesus says. In 1970, they were excavating in the Jewish section of the old city, and 6 meters down they came on a house that had burned to the ground during the siege of Titus. And in the house was the charred body of a woman clutching her precious jewels. Now, I don't know if she knew what Jesus had said, but she went back to get her jewels and paid for it with her life. Another object lesson, that it really pays to do what Jesus says. And another object lesson, it pays not to be too attached to earthly things. By the way, that woman was given a formal Jewish burial exactly 1900 years after she died. Well, so much for the siege of Jerusalem, except for one thing. Have you ever wondered what happened to all that wonderful marble that Herod imported to build his temple? We know that Titus ordered it all removed. Where did it go to? Well, here's a thought. It took Titus another 4 years to quell the Jewish rebellion, and it ended with the terrible siege of Masada. Then in 80 AD, a great triumphal arch was erected in honor of Titus's victory in Israel. It's still in very good condition and stands in Rome near the Colosseum. It was the inspiration for the Arc de Triomphe. What do you think it was made of? Marble. Now that would be one of the great ironies in history. Well, so much for the destruction of Jerusalem. But Mark 13 includes a lot of other prophecies. Biblical prophecy is often like a range of mountains. From a distance you think it's one range, but as you get closer you see that it's 2 or 3 ranges. There are some things in Mark 13 that haven't yet been fulfilled, the second coming of Christ. There are some things that may already have been fulfilled. For example, for in those days there will be such tribulation as has not seen from the beginning of creation until now, and never will be. I've often wondered if that's referring to the Second World War. It certainly involved a slaughter on a scale never seen before. And when the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, releasing the power of 1,000 suns, killing became possible in a way never dreamed of since the creation. Now, I don't know if that is a fulfillment of Mark 13, but if it is, it means that the second coming of Christ could be really soon. And Jesus ends this passage by telling us how he wants to prepare for his second coming. And he says it 5 times, in case we haven't got it into our thick skulls. Watch, be alert, be on guard, don't be caught sleeping, and again, watch. Jesus wants us to be extremely active in preparing for his second coming. And we have seen how valuable it is to do what Jesus says. And he underlines the wisdom of obedience in a stunning statement. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. It's a stunning statement unless he was what he says he was, the very Son of God. And he calls us to be ready. Francis of Assisi was hoeing his field one morning, and someone engaged him in conversation and asked, if you knew Jesus was coming at sunset, what would you do with the rest of the day? And he looked out and he said, I think I'd finish hoeing my field. Well, you might not agree with his actual decision, but what an attitude. To plan your days so that if Jesus came at sunset, you'd be happy with what you did. Well, that actually brings us to the end of our formal studies in Mark. I hope you've enjoyed them. The next 9 studies are going to be given to something a bit different, and we're going to draw on all of the Gospels. We're going to try to walk with Jesus through the 9 days from the Saturday before Easter to Easter Sunday. We know at least one thing on every day that happened, some of them only from the book of Mark. Now, those 9 days include what's known as Holy Week. For centuries, people have given Holy Week to make extra time for their walk with God, and I think it's a wonderful idea. So it would be great if you could do these studies on the actual days. This year they fall from the 9th to the 17th of April. I think it would be great if you could get hold of someone else and get them to do them at the same time. So thank you for listening, and God bless.